So this is the session called JAM304. It's about the BlackBerry 10 visual style and finding your flow. How will you make use of this flow buzzword? I recognize quite a few of you from the session I did 15 minutes ago, so I won't get away with the same things again. But first of all, my name is Jonas. I work in the Malmö, Sweden office, and I lead a team of Cascades experts helping app developers, mostly internally.
And my name is Roger. I also work in the same office, but work with interaction design primarily, interaction design of the BlackBerry 10 platform.
Just a quick poll. How many designers do we have in the audience? Two. Three if we're counting you.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot. Yeah.
All right. So the agenda for today is only three chapters today. We're going to talk about the visual style of BlackBerry 10, what we thought about doing this, and why and how. Then we're going to talk about the flow. You hear a lot about this flow. What does it actually mean? What is it we put into this word? And in the end, we're going to show you quickly how do you do this in Cascades. A few quick code examples, just to show you how easy it is. First of all, the visual style. So basically, we have evolved the BlackBerry visual style into something new. The goal is to create a BlackBerry experience that you recognize across all of our devices. It's only one now, but like a visual design language that you will recognize that will be easy for you to use across apps, across devices. And to do this, we have 5 different design tenets we follow. So the first one, flow, which we're going to talk a lot about. Flow is about like emphasizing all of the interaction with the app. You can always reach whatever it is you want. Like the most common use cases, you can reach it with a swipe, with a button. It should be always clear to you. We guide the users into the most meaningful actions. The second one is cinematic experience. That means that we try to make use of the whole screen. We use all of our graphics knowledge and the graphics power not to clutter your screen with meaningless animations, but to actually use that in order to display the information you need in the best way. Efficiency. Of course, efficiency. You have to. It has to be simple to use. It has to be easy to read. You have to be able to work fast. Work a lot with, as I said, recognizing the visual style between the apps, with the information density. How much can you take in at one time without cluttering it? And the fourth one is moments of charm. We're at the star. Moments of charm is all of these small, delightful details that makes the visual design language, like it pops out. It actually looks beautiful, and it adds the human touch to this kind of efficiency machine. And last, content is king. Like we show the content. We don't want to get in your way. So whenever we add just the most common control, the most common actions. But we want all of your content to take up as much of the screen as possible. So the result of that is a bunch of like design controls. Just a few examples. We know that you need stuff to work in the expected way. You have a few expectations visually on the platform. You need the sliders, you need the checkboxes toggle buttons, all of that. So we want that to work smoothly for you. We want that to look intuitive for you. So we're going to move on to some colors and theming. It's just a palette of a few colors used in the BB10 phones. What we're trying to strive for here is using neutral colors. Again, we don't want to get in your way. We want to guide you, guide the user to be able what he wants to do. We use subtle background colors that makes up about 80% of the screen, and accent colors that makes up about 20% of the screen. We try to stick with pretty natural, down-to-earth colors. Nothing that sticks out or disturbs you. So for the theming part, as you may know, we have two themes. We have bright and a dark theme. The dark theme is excellent to use for content, typical content application, multimedia applications. Like this is the music player with Alicia Keys. As you see, you need the content to pop out, to be visible. In that case, you can use the dark theme, and you see like the slider has a dark background, and the content kind of pops out. This is used for image viewers and video players and music players. While we have the bright theme, which is great to use for when you have to read stuff. You have to get a lot of information at the same time. Then that pops out. It eases your readability. So that's something to think about when you start choosing. Should I go bright or dark? Could also mention that we got a question on last session if you could choose depending on what device you're developing for. And you could have, for example, an app that works best bright theme on a C10 and in the dark theme on the Q10. And that can also have to do with OLED screens, or it works a little bit different for each device, and you have to look at what works best. So icon-wise, we use a lot of icons in the UI, and we want them to help speed up the efficiency of the user, to speed up the productivity and the flow. So that's why we moved from, we don't want to use the photorealistic icons too much. We want to use the stylized ones. This makes it easier for us to keep it consistent. You recognize the icons, and it also helps us when you want to say something more abstract than this. Here you say playbook. That's pretty concrete. When you want to say internet, how do you take a photo of the internet? So this enables us to do a bit more abstract icons. It's also important to not, again, we don't want to clutter the icons with a bunch of stuff. We don't want to disturb the user. We want it to be easy for the eye. So when you start designing your icons, this is a pretty good image of the kind of detail you should strive for. You don't want to get too low because it kind of looks, you see, it looks a bit, we're not exactly conveying what it is. On the other hand, you have the too high. It's a lot of clutter in it. The one in the middle looks fairly good, and a good trick to see if you're on the right path is to just blur it and see. Can you still see what this means? because this is kind of what it will appear when you have it 16 times 16 pixels. And again, keep it simple, keep it stylized versions, use airports or subways as inspiration sources. We want just to be clear to signal what we want. No, we don't add any 3D effects or seeing like the speed gauge from the side or stuff like that. Just a small amount of details. And we do have these a bunch of these icons available for you if you want to use in-app icons. So go to developer.blackberry.com, and under design, I think there is an icon set that you can download with a bunch of icons. If you don't want to do it.
You should go there and download them and make your own life easier, I would say.
So again, this is, we have a few guidelines. You can read about this on the developer site under design. There are a few guidelines on how you construct your icons. As you see, we have kind of a bigger frame, which allows you to draw within that whole frame. But we kind of encourage you to stay within a smaller frame. That way you can, this example is a black and white icon, which is where we kind of keep ourselves. But if you want something to stick out, you can add something red or something, a small thing. Or you can even add something that goes outside of these boundaries. But as long as you keep within, like the main part of the icon within these boundaries, you will keep the spacing to the other icons in the UI, and it will all look good together. So these are also guidelines that are available on the developer site. So whenever you start thinking about drawing up your icons on your app, look there for some easy tricks. It will definitely help you getting into the Built for BlackBerry certification, because it will look good together with the other stuff. So home screen icons, they're a different story. They're a bit more colorful. We use kind of a different design language here. There are guidelines for that as well. You see a few materials like the paper curl, and you see a few of those reoccurring in the home screen. So have a look and see how that looks. Yeah, it's a bit different.
You want me to take over?
Yes, please.
Okay, what should I do?
Talk.
Okay. So I actually wanted to talk about how these pieces and principles that Jonas introduced you to come together in BlackBerry 10. And one of the first things that Jonas talked about was efficiency. And in terms of visual style and visual design, one way that translates and demonstrates itself in the actual UI is how we use visuals to provide secondary but yet important information to the user. So if we jump over to the hub and have a look at the list items in the hub, you can see how the kind of status of a message affects the representation of an icon. So the icon can go from being colored or uncolored, all depending on, for example, if it's red or unread. And this is kind of a neat trick we do in order to increase the information density without necessarily adding any additional clutter to the screen. Still keeping it efficient and simple, but using the visual design in order to convey more information. So another way we use the visual design is to create affordances for showing what certain things do and what interactions you can take with it. So since we're designing a platform, we had both the opportunity and kind of the obligation to make sure that there is some kind of consistent use of different shapes and representations in order to kind of educate the users about what stuff means. So this teardrop shape from the alarm clock, I hope you already played with it. It's kind of nice. It shows that something is draggable. And if you kind of start looking closer at the UI, you will find that this shape is reoccurring in lots of other places. Anyone has an idea or seen it in other places?
Maybe in text selection?
That's right, yeah. Text selection. Yeah.
The camera map?
That's right as well. Those were the two examples I was going to give. Yeah, it's that's where you can find it, and it's also kind of, as I said, one example of how different shapes are laid out in the UI to represent something that users get familiar to over time. So in terms of animations and motion, that's becoming an ever more increasingly important part of kind of modern UIs. But as Jonas were also talking about, the BlackBerry 10 platform is about efficiency and flow and content and so forth. And that doesn't necessarily play well with advanced 3D transitions that are time consuming. So the way we've gone about transitions is to make them quite subtle and laid back, still trying to add some stuff that is dynamic and interesting in the UI. So the radio button control.
I'll play it again.
Oh, sorry. Did you stop it?
No, it stops by itself.
It stops on its own. Can you? Okay, here we go. So the radio button control has this very, very subtle kind of parallax effect when moving between different selections. So which is an illustration of that animation doesn't really need to be kind of taking over the whole experience to be useful. Want to play it one more time?
One more time. Everyone look.
Okay, got it.
Thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, we're going to play another movie. Isn't it fun? But one extremely important aspect, kind of both the kind of design of the visual style as well as the whole applications you'll be building, is iteration. So we just wanted to share a little bit of an example of all the iterations the visual design for BB10 went through the example of the music player that we showed you previously. And this was, mind you, before Alicia Keys came on board. So here we go. So this is circa like 2011 sometime. And eventually, we kind of ended up with this. It's not all the pieces. We probably picked the worst pieces to just illustrate the point.
But it looks much better now, and it's important to point out that it's not that you just sit down and design the perfect UI from the start. It will just never happen. You have to iterate over and over.
Cool. Getting tired of the visual style and want to move into Flow? Sure?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
So Flow, is there actually anything more to add? I mean, you heard it over and over in the last year and in this conference already. Well, we wanted to give a quick kind of background of the way we thought about Flow and the way we kind of designed certain parts to kind of support Flow, and as a little bit of an inspiration to what you'll get in the framework, as well as what you should think about yourselves as well, because it doesn't come for free, essentially. So flow was one of the kind of design visions we had when we set out to create BlackBerry 10. And kind of in the essence, it's about a seamless user experience, offering full control and flexibility, mostly through gestures. It's about keeping the user's momentum going, not introducing unnecessary hurdles, and kind of all coming down to supporting kind of quick interactions and efficiency and so forth. This looks wrong. Should have been black. Anyway, so on our own side, we kind of use these 4 steps as kind of guidance to how to kind of actually create that feeling of flow in the various kind of platform things we're building, as well as the apps themselves. I will show you some of the examples and talk through those examples. So let's start with eliminating barriers to action and information. And we'll show a demo of that. A demo that you will already know. So we'll be looking at the peak to the hub.
To the hub?
Yep.
So recognize the cow.
So peeking into the hub, it's about eliminating that barrier of having to do an app switch, essentially. So you have a gesture from the bottom of the screen to start the peek, make a kind of informed decision whether there's something important there to act on or not, and then you can reverse that gesture in a single go. Okay, so the next principle, or the next kind of key to success, is putting the user in control. And this is also a lot about peek and gestures, but maybe from a slightly different angle. So the peek gesture into the hub isn't the only gesture of the same sort. We also rely on gestures to kind of perform even the basic navigation inside of an app. So can we bring up an app where you can navigate?
Let's bring up this.
Yeah. So you have, I mean, in traditional UIs, you have a back button, and you perform the back navigation with that button. Whereas what we wanted to introduce as a way to offer more control and flexibility is that swiping gestures that can be used both to navigate and as well as to peek. So if you want to navigate to a player.
Yes, I do.
And then
you won't see where I'm exactly what I'm doing here, but I'm touching anywhere on the screen to navigate back.
Yeah, and so that kind of thing offers 2 ways of actually, or it even offers 3 ways of navigating, a lot of flexibility. So either a regular back button, or a quick swipe, or the peaky kind of drag gesture. So I'm not sure where you land, but myself today, I tend to always kind of rely on swiping navigation because it feels much quicker. So we can go back to this one. So another example of those gestures and swiping and so forth is found in the keyboard, for instance. Here, you can use a swipe from right to left to delete a full word that you just typed, but it was wrong. So the thing is, then you have here as well, you have added flexibility, added control. You don't need to rely on this gesture to delete. There's still a delete key, but once this shortcut is discovered, you will be able to work much more efficiently. So kind of layering the complexity of the UI and help users that get more advanced, do more advanced stuff is kind of the principle behind all of this. So providing structure and focus is one of those other guidances we want to share. So this is about prioritizing the main use cases of your applications and also prioritizing what the true user goals are. So in terms of the camera, for instance, the main use case is really about taking a picture, and we made that kind of incredibly straightforward by making the whole surface as a shutter button. So you don't need to go and hunt for that button in order to take that photo, which you will be doing over and over again. So another way of looking at structure can be illustrated by all of these core applications. So here we've kind of taken kind of incredible amounts of information and tried to focus it so that each screen actually serves one primary use case. So in terms of AppWell, kind of supporting the discovery of apps, or your apps, hopefully. And in terms of the other apps, either kind of showing an overview or showing a kind of something actionable that you want to get into. Rather than trying to do everything for everyone, it's about kind of focusing the app UI. And another important aspect here is that all of these applications rely on kind of very similar design pattern that users more quickly will get familiar to, built on the kind of Cascades core UI. So demo time again. And the last point I wanted to make around this is about giving compelling feedback. So
Smile.
Smile. So do you want to focus in on that guy over there? So feedback, it's really about kind of making the UI a little bit more dynamic, as we were talking before. So if you see what's happened when Jonas is changing the focus, all the different controls animate out and then animate back again. So it's a very subtle thing, but still providing kind of really clearly to the end user what is going on now, what is in control versus not. And enough playing, and time to present again.
All right. So I'm going to show you a little bit about how you do this in Cascades, which, by the way, is very simple, because that's my main message. So going into 3 different concepts which helps this. So this is what we already showed you a few times by demoing. This is just what we call it in Cascades, and what you, as app developers, should be everyone here except the 3 designers. Right? What you need to know: tabs, navigation, and cards. Start with tabs. Now we're going to show demos again. So tabs is what you see here at the bottom. You can choose different tabs, and we kind of limit the amount. You don't want to have 15 tabs on the bottom here, because the user won't be able to press them or read them or anything. So the design message here is place the most used stuff on the action bar, and the rest on the sidebar. So what will happen is you just populate your tab pane with a bunch of tabs, and the ones that don't fit in the action bar, they will end up here, which you can reach. As you see, I'm pressing. You don't see that. I'm pressing the bottom left icon to bring it up, or I can peek. And if we look at this in Cascades, this is basically how it looks. You have your tab pane. You populate it with tabs. In the order you populate it with tabs, it will show up on the action bar as long as they fit. The rest will populate on the sidebar. And you have this show tabs on action bar true, which just means you will use the action bar for tabs instead of for actions. So you will get that for free. All of that peeking and tabbing. So going into navigation and peeking. Du kan sköta den.
Ja.
So navigating into a drill down navigation where you, within a tab, navigate into the application, for example, by pressing one of these. You get in. This is a football management application, by the way, made especially for football managers. And it says what kind of car he drives. Yeah. Volvo, yeah, it's made by Swedish people. So when you drill down, you see the tab bar is replaced, and you can navigate back with the peek gesture, which is a non-modal gesture, so you will stay in that gesture for as long as you want. You can let it go, or you can drag on the back button. When you drag on the back button, you get all the way to the top. Now this is small application, so it's the same, but it also brings up that sidebar. So looking at that in Cascades, this is even simpler. You have a navigation pane. This is where you control all your drill down navigation. It will handle this the stack of pages you navigated through for you, and you don't have to do much about that. The only thing you need to have is you need to have peek enabled to have the peek behavior, and that's actually true by default. You don't have to do anything. This was a very small code example. So let's look at the cards. Cards is a very, very good concept within Cascades. So an introduction to that is when you want to bring in, you want to use functionality from another application in your app. You've seen the sharing framework a bunch of times today. It's a great example. You don't want to leave your app, but you want to bring in another app into it. So what you can do, you can make your app be invocable through the invocation framework, or you could invoke another application. You can bring that in as a card. That means you bring in a part of another application as a UI in your app. You don't really have to think much about how it works. In this case, we press Klaus Peter Pereira, and we would like to share this image. We long press on the image, which brings up the context menu. There's a share button. And the only code we've written here is basically share. I'll show it to you in a minute. And it will bring up this, as you've seen a few times today, which is then from another part of the system called the sharing framework. But you could also bring in, for example, the picture viewer or the picture editor or whatever you like. And here you go into the Facebook flow and so on. And that flow can continue for a while. Oh, peeking. So what I meant to show you was that the peaking will still be here, even though you're bringing in something from another application. And you won't have to care much about that either. So the source code for this is on your action set. This is the set you define for your context menu. We bring up contextual actions. You have an action set with an invoke action item, and you specify a query in this item that just says what you want to do. In this query, you can you say what MIME type it is. This is so that the invocation framework then can recognize what you're trying to do. You have an invoke action ID. In this case, we used share, and that code line is what made all of this sharing happen. You could use view. There are a bunch of these. Edit. And you can also use, if you have another application that is registered as a recipient for this. And then the URI. You can also specify directly if you don't want the system to handle it for you. If you have a specific target, a specific app that you want to open this, you can specify that as well. So when it comes to the invocation framework, there's a dedicated session for this. And the guy doing that knows much more than I do about it. Tomorrow, 2:15. JAM318. So we referred you to the developer side a few times. This is what it looks like. We have a UI guidelines under the design tab on the developer site. It's a really good site for everyone, not only designers, for all your app developers to read through, know what you get a feeling for what we think about, what we want you to think about. Yeah, really good to know. And it's on developer.blackberry.com/design/bb10, or just go to the developer site and click on design. And we're finishing this off. If you want to see more of Roger, there's a session after this called One Design, One Implementation, and One Build. We go through how to create apps for both the Z10 and the Q10 in more depth. I recommend that one. So you might recognize this. These are all the guys from the Sweden TAT office that are here today and tomorrow. We would love to hear your feedback on especially the experience you have as developers. What do you think about the developer site, the downloads, the sample apps, the documentation, the experience you have as a developer working with Cascades? Because we always try to improve it. So when you see one of these faces in the corridors, catch us and tell us what you think. You recognize this guy from the keynote. The one in the middle, he's sitting right there if you want to ask him something. And yeah. So we move to questions. Who has the first question? Do we have a microphone for this? No?
Just a quick question. You mentioned the action bar and the number of icons that can fit there. I forget if you indicated the total number before they move over to the sidebar.
So the question was, how many actions or tabs do we fit in the action bar? It depends on...
No, the question was on the number of items, and it's so there's room for 3 tabs, or well, 4 tabs, and after the 4th tab, there will be a sidebar automatically created. And when it comes to actions, it's after the kind of 3rd action that the overflow will be created. But actually, it's our kind of recommendation is to not necessarily always expose 3 actions on the action bar if they are not that frequent, all of them.
Yeah, we actually recommend to if you only have one action that is the most common one and then a few more edge cases, then only display one. There is no need to have more actions than necessary. Next question.
Could you go back to Alicia Keys, please? And I do have a question.
Okay. In that case, yes.
Related to that slide.
Related to her.
So we can't comment on other employees.
I know you always have rationale behind different things. I'm curious, the area that says tiers always win, to me it's a little jarring because it doesn't seem to align, and there's a little bit of a border or something, but it looks a little bit odd. Can you explain what that is?
So do you know the answer yourself, or are you trying to put us on the spot?
I guess I'm trying to put you, well, no, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but if I just did,
So
That's fine. That's fine. That's
actually, it's because beneath the cover,
can we just
sorry.
because this is recorded, so I'll repeat the question. The question was this UI on the top of Alicia Keys, which doesn't really align. Why? Yeah, why?
Yeah, and I'm eager to answer that.
Yeah, I guess you have
Because
the
it's a good lesson in terms of the visual design we spoke about earlier. So beneath that cover, there is a list of all the songs in the album. So that kind of creates a very subtle affordance that you can get to that list.
so if you tap that, something
Yeah.
longer will appear?
We could show you on a device, but we're not allowed to show copyrighted content on the screen. So
we can
we
show
can't
you
show album
afterwards.
covers. I don't think we have any albums in that phone.
No,
Oh.
we don't.
Okay, so it's deliberate to enhance discoverability of that feature.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it does a good job, I guess, because I want to tap that or something,
Yeah.
figure it out.
Yeah, you reacted to it, so stay afterwards and you can see how it works. Next question.
You've uploaded already some icons for the buttons, but they are only working on dark background. Could you upload the same icons also for light background, like example in a list view?
So the question is if the icons we already uploaded are only available for a dark background.
Yes, the examples.
Yeah, so
Should
I think there is actually a dedicated session on those icons tomorrow. I don't know the number or the name, but come by afterwards and we can see who runs that session, and that person will probably know a lot more about what's happening on that end.
Yes, of course. Since it's a finished image, it's hard for us to change the color because of the border.
yeah.
Yeah,
It should be available in both things, shouldn't it?
I would assume so. I haven't actually looked at them myself. But let's talk about that afterwards.
That session is, I think, 5:30 today,
Okay.
called BlackBerry 10 Icons, Quality on Tap, Liz Myers. And it doesn't have the number in here, but it's in G106.
So G106, 5:30 today.
Yes.
Go to for getting more info on the icons.
But don't, because then you'll miss Roger's next session.
Jam 399.
Okay, JAM304. Yes.
How do you combine those flows? So say I want happy environment, but I also want zero-down navigation. And what's the recommended practice if I want happy environment flow?
So the question was, if you want to combine tabs and drill down navigation, how do you think about that? Switch.
And it's definitely possible. So we made some limitations or some decisions, which means that the tabs can only be available on the first level of the application. But you can, as this app actually shows, you can actually have drill down navigation, although the kind of first structure is tabbed.
And what you then get is, now this only drills down one level, as we already looked at. But what you get is, if you drill down 5 levels, you can still grab the back button and swipe all the way back to the root of the application.
So the tab have to be the top level flow.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think the QML itself doesn't allow it to be any other way. You had another question?
In the hub, there is a title bar. There appears to be a word-on control, and I'm not sure that is in the SDK. Is that in the SDK?
So
Or will it be made available?
So the question was that there is a drop-down control in the title bar in the hub. It's a good observation. It's something that isn't in the SDK yet, but it's one of the paradigms that some of our apps have taken on. So we'll probably expose it eventually.
So if you want to know what we're talking about, this is the one, right? You get a drop down with the folders.
But I think there is another session. I don't know the number or name of that either, but are on the future roadmap also during the conference.
But yeah, it's a good observation that a lot of things that you see in the apps are custom made. You will see, even in our core applications, because there's always these edge cases that you need to think about. And that's why we made it easy to do your own custom stuff.
It's also, I mean, from a design point of view, we can't know for sure exactly what will be the most commonly used controls. So sometimes we force people to experiment before we add it to cascades, to just not to burn our sleep and resources.
Right, next.
I want to know this back button. We can drag it, and we can also press on it, correct?
Yes.
And how can the user know that if I drag the back button, then I got something more, then I press?
So the question was, the back button you can tap and you can drag. And how will the end user know that you're able to drag, I guess? Tapping is maybe a little more self-explanatory. So I think people will have different answers to that. My answer, and you can add yours afterwards if you like. My answer is that the user doesn't need to know, because either he or she will discover it eventually, but he or she is perfectly fine with just tapping. So that's about kind of layering the UI. So there are advanced stuff and there's less advanced stuff for the people that haven't gotten to that level of expertise.
And it's kind of similar to the back swipe on the keyboard. You can swipe to the left on the keyboard, anywhere on the keyboard, and it erases the last word you typed, which is also something you can't see, but you learn it eventually and you get used to it.
So then you get kind of higher capability of achieving flow once you learn it.
You're a level 2 user.
Yeah.
But if we tap the back button, we go back to the last screen.
Yeah.
For that, we can also just sweep the screen. We also go back to the last one, correct?
Yeah.
So isn't that some kind of local things on the screen?
So you mean that the fact? So the question, the other question.
No, it's not the same. Swiping on the back button goes back to the root of the application. Like dragging the back button goes back to the root. Swiping anywhere goes back to the previous page.
But if I tap the back button, I can go back to the last one.
Then you go back to the previous.
I can also swipe the screen of the button. I swipe the screen, it also shows the last one.
That's right. And it's again the same kind of thing. So adding a large surface for going back one screen makes it quicker essentially when you start to use it, because you don't need to target the back button.
Okay, any more questions?
You showed the sharing functionality in your football app.
Yes.
For the picture. I found it a bit strange that there was only one item in the list that you swiped in from the right side. That is called share. And
Oh, yeah.
then another panel goes up. So
Yeah.
why didn't you integrate the share functionality into that panel?
So the question is, on this Football Manager app, there was only one share button, and I could just as well have expanded that and have Facebook and Twitter and that on the context menu.
It's a good question.
Well, the simple answer is normally you don't. I would say this app maybe isn't fully functional for a professional football manager yet. But maybe the typical use case is that you have more actions. You have save image, you have a few more. And it's the same as with the action bar. We don't want to put too much there. Because as soon as you go over a certain number of items and you need to scroll to get there, your whole flow is broken. So we don't want to get there. We want to have a good amount of buttons. In this case, only one button. I agree. It seems empty.
Could you also call the sharing functionality directly without the extra menu between?
Yes, you can call share share to Facebook and have that as a button if you want.
Can you enumerate the sharing targets? So to have the list of Facebook, Twitter, and so on within our application.
So
can we get a list of available services?
So the question is, if you can you get this list of sharing services and add it into your application in some other way? And the quick answer to that is that I don't know. Do you?
I don't know either. Anyone knows?
Anders? Or?
Yes, I think it's possible. There should be documentation on that as well on the site, which different targets there are.
Okay, so the answer is yes.
Or check with Anders afterwards.
So, more questions? Did I see a hand? Or?
I was simply going to say that you can programmatically query and the broker will tell you the full list.
Yeah.
He gave the right answer.
Good. Approved. So, any last question? Then we say thank you.